Hi, this is Michael Kennedy from Developmentor. Welcome to the next episode in my Python for the C# developer series. In this series, we sort of explore Python by taking some of our favorite features in .NET and C# and see how those manifest and work in Python. So number 6 here is anonymous types. So let's just switch over and look at anonymous types in C# really quick. So here I have an application. It's not really doing anything. Anonymous types came into the language when LINQ came along. And so a lot of this was really about doing kind of projections from LINQ queries down into sort of smaller sub-objects or joined objects, things like that. But we're just going to explore them on their own. The motivation for why you might do this is sort of missing, but that's okay. So when we declare an anonymous type, we can't give it a name. We can't give it like a named type or anything because, by definition, it is anonymous. It has no name. So these are just sort of generated by the compiler on the fly. So we'll just call this, let's call it P1. Who knows what we're going to do here? And we'll just say new, like we're going to say new string or new person or whatever, but instead of putting anything there, we just say curly brace. And then the properties that we define, so let's just sort of work with something that might be a person object, something like that. So we can say age equals, say, 28, comma, name equals Michael. It's been a long time since I've been 28, but there you go. Let's go email equals let's use this one, Mike C. Kennedy at gmail.com, and we can just leave it at that, I suppose. Notice that we can leave the final little curly here, or sorry, comma there, and that's fine. That's a C# thing. So we can just write this out and say P1 and just see what we get. So here we have curly bracket age equals 28, name equals Michael, and so on. And we also get IntelliSense. So if I come down here, I can say P1 dot name, and it says it's a string. I can go up to age, let's say, and says that's an integer. So, this is sort of a strongly typed object just created on the fly. Okay, so does Python have such a thing? We'll see. The answer is mostly. Okay, actually, we'll switch over there now and have a look. So let's look at working with basically the same type. So I called that one P1, and we said var P1 in .NET. We don't name our variables in Python, so sort of just say like this. And I can just say this is equal to curly and put something here. So we could say, now this definition of it, we have to use curly quotes here rather than just saying name equals or age equals. Let's keep it consistent. I think we started with age. So we'll say age, and instead of saying equals, we say, what did I say, 28, name with a comma. Name is Michael, comma, and email is MikeCKennedy at gmail.com. And of course, we can also leave this here. So we can just say print, that's like console write line, P1, and see what we get. Now look, we have something very, very similar over here, but this is not actually an anonymous type. What this is a dictionary. So if I print out the type, let's say type of P1, comma, you just put commas that just separates them by space or whatever you say the separator is. So you can see this is actually a dictionary. So I can do things like this. I can say print your name is curly 0 dot format P1 bracket name, like that. Your name is Michael. But what I can't do is what I could do in C# is I could say dot name. If I try this, it says, no. There is no name on dictionary. So you might say, well, Michael, this doesn't really do it. Like we have dictionaries in .NET, and those are not anonymous types. True. But if we add just the slightest bit of code to our Python class, we define a class here called anonymous object that redefines, something you can do in Python, not so easy in .NET, redefines what it means to get and set values in the object. And we basically delegate to getting and setting items in the dictionary. This is kind of like implementing your own dynamic object in C# and using a dictionary to back it. So let's do this again, but let me put this back here so this runs again. And let me just duplicate all this code, and we'll come along and make a P2. Oops, maybe not delete the whole thing. Make a P2. And we'll say a non-object of this. It's one way to do it. And let's just go down here and say P2, P2, P2. Now I think this will run. Let's find out. Except for that I have to import this. So we'll import that one. Excellent. Let's put that at the top. Runs. Okay, so now we've got this anonymous object, right? This is the type. Remember, we're printing a type and then the value. And here we have this. But watch this. Now that we have this anonymous object that whenever you access an attribute basically runs a little code, which is really the getter, I can say p2.name equals that, and I can even add on to it over here. I can say p2.hobby equals biking. So now if I run it, you can see it even have a hobby. So not only are these sort of dynamic things that I can new up inline and then set and read their values very much like anonymous types, I can actually continue to modify them. So they're a little more like expando objects in C#, I would say. Now let me show you one final way to create these things that is slightly closer to the C# syntax. So remember, over in C# here, we said new, and then we just said age equals this, comma, name equals this. In fact, let me copy that just to prove it's going to be basically the same. It won't be Pythonic names because they're lowercase versus uppercase, but let's get rid of this. And if I just come down here and say anonymous object, you can see there's little warnings. That's just about spacing. Look at this. So this code has no squigglies. It looks like it's going to work. So let's say print p3. So here I'm creating an object. Instead of saying new curly, I say a non-object parenthesis. Otherwise, same code. And here you can see, let's just write p3 equal, shortcut. It's not my favorite way to do print, but just so you can see. All right. There you go. So that's anonymous objects and anonymous types in Python. And they're not quite as clean as what we have in .NET because you don't have IntelliSense on these. So if I say p3 dot, I get these things that come from dictionary, but I don't get like age, name, and email. Other than that, they're pretty much equivalent and really handy when you need them. Hopefully you found that useful. I'll see you next time. Thanks. Bye.